bountiful harvest we made this month, a tour of the California garden, some things for you to do, all this and a lot more in today's episode of California Gardening. So let's begin with all the harvests we made this month, beginning with apples. We were growing our apples in this 4-in-1 tree. There are 4 varieties of apples in this one tree, and as you can see, the tree is loaded with apples, and there are multiple varieties here. Dorset golden apples, which in my opinion taste really good and grow very well in Southern California weather. And you can look at these apples, they're beautiful, and we harvested a few of these apples as they grew and as they turned ripe on the tree. We have the Anna apple that you're looking at right now. They're red in color, very nice to look at. And here we are harvesting the Anna apple. As you can see here, nice crispy apple, and the Dorset golden as well. Beautiful looking apples. And as you can see, the tree is still loaded with apples. Many more apples to harvest during this month. Blackberries. We had our blackberries growing in this container. This is a very unique type of blackberry plant. This grows as a bush, not as a vine, but still produces a lot of blackberries, as you can see here. And there are a lot of blackberries on this plant. You can see here they've all ripened now. They are growing in bunches like you see here. And summer is a time when blackberries mature and produce fruits. Just like strawberries and raspberries, blackberries do produce fruits at this time. And homegrown blackberries are just so nice. You can see the blackberries, they look so good. A lot of you have asked me how I fertilize my fruit trees like my berries and other fruit trees. And the answer to that is you can add fertilizer every 3 months if you are adding granular fertilizer. Or if you're using liquid fertilizers like worm tea, seaweed, fish emulsion, then you can add it once a month. They will be taken up by the plant very well. And if you keep adding good fertilizer, you can expect to get good fruits from your plant like this. This is an excellent looking harvest of blackberries. Moving on to cabbage. This was our last cabbage harvest of the season. And you can see that this is the purple cabbage. This is looking pretty good. This is the final harvest for the season. And yes, no more cabbages till the fall season now. Cauliflower. Another cool season crop. However, we were growing cauliflowers simply because cauliflowers are quite expensive at the grocery store these days. And you can look at our cauliflower head here. Beautiful looking cauliflower head. And a really good harvest for the summer season. Loquats. Our loquat tree was loaded with loquats. And as you can see, we harvested a lot of loquats. It was a great month for harvesting loquats from our dwarf loquat tree. Mint. Our mint plant was growing in the whiskey barrel container, and we harvested a lot of mint this month. Mint grows year-round in Southern California, and you can look at the bunch of mint here. Beautiful looking mint, very nice, fresh and delicious. Mulberries. Our mulberry tree was also loaded with mulberries, and we harvested a lot of these mulberries this month. You can see these mulberries. They do fall down from the tree once they are ripe. However, you can still find a few ripe ones on the tree and harvest them as you need them. And you can see there are a lot more mulberries growing on the tree. And this is a huge tree. A big tree with a lot of fruits. And mulberries are very delicious. This is the long type mulberry, which is not only very delicious, but is also very productive. This plant is very productive. It will give you a lot of mulberries, as you can see here. And this is another harvest here. Beautiful looking mulberries. Peaches. We were growing peaches in our 4-in-1 peach tree, which means that 4 varieties of peach were growing in this tree. And it's quite a short tree, and you can see here it is loaded with peaches. We harvested several varieties of peaches from this tree. You can see how many peaches are being produced on this small tree. And this is just the first year of production. We just got this tree last year. But you can see the tree is quite loaded in the first year itself. And these are beautiful looking peaches, very nice, very delicious, very sweet. And you can start harvesting peaches once they are a little soft. They give in a little bit. And one more variety here, you can see here beautiful looking peaches. And here are some more. So peaches will start flowering in early spring and then produce peaches by around summer, as you can see here. And a lot of the peaches will fall down if you don't harvest them. So it's best if you keep looking and keep harvesting the peaches. This one, for example, is the May Pride peach. We also have the Desert Gold variety and two more varieties growing on this 4-in-1 peach tree. All beautiful looking peaches, as you can see here. And this is our peach harvest. As you can see, beautiful looking peaches. And we were back in just a few days to harvest more peaches. And this tree gave us so many peaches that we weren't really expecting it for the first year of growth. Plums. Another beautiful looking fruit that flowers in the spring and produces in the summer are plums. Now this is the beauty plum. And I love this plum variety because it's so productive here in Southern California. A lot of people grow other plum varieties, but I just love this plum variety. These are delicious plums, very sweet, very delicious plums. And you can look at our harvest here, beautiful looking plums. Potatoes. We were growing blue potatoes in this whiskey barrel container, and it was time to harvest these potatoes. We started planting these potatoes in January, so it's been a few months now. So it's time to harvest these potatoes. And you can see on the surface itself, there are so many potatoes that we have begun harvesting. Now the potato plants itself don't grow that large. So if you get a few potatoes from each plant, that's a good enough harvest for your potatoes. So you can expect to get about 5 to 6 potatoes per plant, and that's a really good harvest. In most cases, you will get less than that. Now, a lot of you have asked this question whether we can replant these potato plants. And yes, the answer is yes, you can replant these potato plants and they will continue to grow. However, once the potato growing season is over, the plant doesn't really have energy to produce a lot more potatoes. So it's best to just discard the plants and start fresh. And you can look at our harvest here, beautiful looking potatoes. Sorrel. Our red veined sorrel was growing in this whiskey barrel container, and you have seen me harvesting this many times in the last month as well. But you can see here beautiful looking sorrel leaves. And for those of you who are not familiar with sorrel leaves, they not only look beautiful, they taste amazing and they have great health benefits. The leaves have a little sour taste. And the way we cook sorrel is we cook it with lentils. We add sorrel leaves, chopped sorrel leaves, lentils, and some spices. And it creates a really nice dish. And we grew 6 plants in this one whiskey barrel container. And you can see it's so easy to grow sorrel in one whiskey barrel container. And once the season is over, you can start harvesting the entire plant like you see here. Until this time, we were just harvesting individual leaves. However, now is the time to completely harvest the plant. In the summer season, they will go to bolt. So this is a great time to harvest all your sorrel leaves. And you can look at our harvest here, beautiful looking leaves. Strawberries. We were growing strawberries in our green stalk planter. This is one of the best ways you can grow strawberry. And just look at the strawberries here, beautiful looking strawberries. And we were harvesting a few strawberries every few days from this planter. And now let's begin with the garden tour, starting with the raised beds. In our first raised bed, we had peppers, a lot of varieties of peppers. Here you can see long type cayenne peppers. And there were just a lot of pepper varieties that I was trying out this year. And they're all heirloom pepper varieties. So I've labeled these and I'll make sure to save the seeds every year so that I can plant my own. You can see some bell peppers as well. These are the big green bell peppers. But all in all, a lot of varieties of peppers growing here. In the area between the raised beds on the trellis, we have bottle gourd. You can see the bottle gourds are now producing. You can see a huge bottle gourd here, looking beautiful. And the plant has grown quite vigorously in the last month or so. And on the other side, we have red gourd plants that are just taking off now. They have been a little slower than the bottle gourds. However, they are growing well now. In the next raised bed, we have eggplants to start with. We have multiple eggplant varieties here, followed by a row of peppers. You can see here nice bell peppers growing on these plants. And right next to that, we have our tomato plant. These tomatoes were just planted from store-bought tomatoes. I just saved the seeds and sowed them, and they turned out to be really good plants with a lot of tomatoes growing. And right next to that, we have another row of peppers, bell peppers, as you can see here. And right next to that, we have our eggplants. We have the thorned eggplant, we have the Thai green eggplant, just a lot of eggplant varieties here. And on the next raised bed, we again have peppers and eggplants. As you might have guessed, we love eating peppers and we love eating eggplants. Once again, multiple varieties here, all growing very well. We have our onion chives plant. It produced beautiful flowers now. And we have the shallots. These shallots are looking pretty good as well. And in the trellis between the raised beds, they were supposed to be covered with snake gourds. Now you can see the snake gourd plants. They are on both sides of the trellis and they are looking good. However, they haven't taken off as well as the bottle gourds have. So they're a little slow. It has been cooler than usual in Southern California this month. This is the bush cucumber plant. You can see here loaded with a lot of flowers, and you see some cucumbers growing too. So we hope to get a lot of cucumbers from this plant during this month. Our okras didn't do well at all this year. This season is supposed to be the season when okra really takes off. However, they haven't been doing too good. The taro root has been doing okay, and there are a few more eggplants here on this bed that are doing okay. And on the last raised bed, we have our bush asparagus beans, and on the corners, we have our ash gourd plants. The ash gourd plants have now taken off, they are doing good. The bush asparagus beans have been okay, not great. And then we have our cucumbers, a lot of cucumber varieties. All of them are growing really well on these tomato cages. These tomato cages are excellent for growing cucumbers. Not tomatoes, but cucumbers. Yes, you can grow them on these tomato cages. They grow very well. Some more ash gourd plants. And then finally, we have the ivy gourd plant. Not as prolific as last year, but still doing okay. Let's now move on to the containers. In the first container, we have our eggplant. This is the Udmalpet eggplant, an Indian eggplant variety that's growing well, followed by our snake gourd plants. The snake gourd plants have now produced flowers, and I do see some snake gourds growing as well. So all in all, looking good. Our big Indian tomatoes, they are doing really good. Lots of clusters of tomatoes, and we hope to harvest them soon. We have the Floradale tomato, a new determinate tomato variety we are trying for the first time, followed by our Egyptian walking onions, looking pretty good now, and the white Carolina strawberries. The strawberry plant has grown so huge that it has now grown over to the next container, which has the turmeric plants, and to the next container as well, which has this black beauty eggplant that's growing well. In the next container, we have more cucumbers. This is the Puneri cucumber, one of my favorite cucumber varieties to grow. Followed by potatoes. We just planted some seed potatoes from the pantry, and they're looking good. And we have our ivy gourd plant in the next container. 2 new ivy gourd plants that are doing well. We have our mint plant that's doing okay. Followed by our heirloom tomatoes. These were the ones that grew from the compost, and they're doing okay. It's a beefsteak style tomato. We have our hyacinth bean plant. This is the bush type hyacinth bean. Looking pretty good now, producing a lot of hyacinth beans as you can see here. Followed by another Floridale tomato. Really looking forward to this. Followed by cauliflowers. Cauliflowers have become expensive, so we are growing cauliflowers year round. In the next container, we have our potato onions that have bunched out quite well. Followed by the shallots, which are looking good too. We have some okras in the next container. As you can see, not doing that well. The taro root plant has been doing okay. Lots of new leaves here. Followed by our giant Marconi peppers that have now produced a lot of peppers. As you can see, this is a very unique pepper variety, producing a lot of peppers. We have our cucumbers. This is the Burplus cucumber variety, and it's producing a lot of flowers and cucumbers as well, as you can see. And there are a lot of plants here. Our big Indian tomatoes once again are doing really good. Lots of tomatoes on this plant, grown a single stem. We have our peppers as well as bell peppers. You can see not a whole lot of peppers, the cayenne peppers, but the bell peppers are really exploding, as you can see here. There are a lot of peppers here, growing really well, producing a lot of big bell peppers that will be ready for harvest very soon. We have our hyacinth bean plant. This is the vining type hyacinth bean, and it has grown to the entire length of the trellis, as you can see. No signs of flowers yet, but they will produce flowers and fruits very soon. And finally, this is our longevity spinach plant that's looking good. In our greenstock planter, we just set up our classic greenstock planter and planted a lot of varieties of vegetables, cauliflowers, peppers, tomatoes, and we will be setting up our greenstock planter soon, after which I will be reviewing the greenstock watering system, so stay tuned for that. It's a very interesting way to water your greenstock planter, and I'll be sharing the details by next month. I wanted to give you a quick tour of our fruit trees. We have our Rajapuri banana plant producing a lot of bananas, as you can see here. Our pluot tree is loaded with pluots as well. It's become a massive tree now, and there are pluots everywhere. Multiple varieties growing on one tree. It's a beautiful looking tree as well. The loquats have been doing well. We harvested a lot of loquats, as you saw, and there are still a few more on the plant. So this will be the final month of harvesting these loquats. And you can see this is a dwarf tree, not that big, but produced a lot of loquats. Our 4-in-1 apple tree also has a lot of apples. We have been harvesting these apples this month, and we will continue to harvest them. Our plums are also looking good. The plum tree is loaded with plums. This is the beauty plum variety. Great variety to grow in your home garden. Very nice, juicy, and delicious plums. Our mission fig tree is also loaded with figs. You can see this is one of the best fig varieties you can grow. Really nice, good sized figs here. Looking pretty good. Some more figs on the top, as you can see. One of the best tasting figs is the mission fig. We have our apples. This is the N Shimmer apple. These apples are still raw, not ready for harvest yet. But it's a very unique variety of apple to grow. We have the Anna apple. This is another Anna apple tree, growing pretty good now. We have our nectar plum. The nectar plums are another interesting fruit that we are growing in our garden. This is a combination between a nectarine and a plum and grows really well in Southern California. The tree itself is a semi-dwarf tree and looks beautiful. We have our sapodilla plant. The sapodilla or the chiku plant is very interesting. It has one fruit, not a heavy producer, but the fruits are delicious. We have our blackberries, lots of blackberries. You saw us harvest a lot of blackberries this month, and there are still a lot of blackberries that are on the plant. I usually just come in the garden and eat some of these blackberries. They are delicious. right off the plant. We also have our lemon guava, one of my favorite fruits. You can see here the tree is loaded with fruits, and this is growing in a container. We also have our mulberries, a lot of mulberries growing on this tree. So, a lot of fruits growing in the garden right now during summer. So, I thought it would be a good idea to show you what all fruits we have in the garden so you can get an idea of what fruits you can grow in your home garden. And now let's look at some things for you to do in your garden. Repotting plants is an important activity to do in your garden, especially during summers when the plant is in the growth state. So this is a jasmine plant. As you can see, the level of soil has gone down. It has not been repotted for 2 years. And what you will need to repot is a tarp and some kind of a saw and some pruners. Now you can use a saw if your roots are very thick, but pruners are good enough to do the job. The first step is to prune all the stems. You want to make the plant into a manageable size. You don't really want an overgrown plant before you transplant the plant. So I generally will prune it in a way that it's easier to manage. And to do that, we start pruning the branches that are crisscrossing first. You don't want any crisscrossing branches. And then also you don't want any tall or large branches. And don't worry, you can do some heavy pruning and the plant really won't have any damage, because once you repot the plant, it will grow back very well. So we take out the root ball of the plant, and you can see here there are a lot of tangled roots. Now these roots are not that dense or hard for me to use the saw, so I'm just using my hands. Also, the potting mix that we used is very light, very fluffy. It has a lot of perlite for good drainage, and it also makes the roots a lot easier to prune just using your hands. It's quite a big root ball, and the idea is to prune only about 1/3 of the soil, like remove 1/3 of the soil, prune the roots, and then put the plant back. For the potting mix, we have chosen some fresh potting mix. I used a little bit of peat moss, vermiculite, compost, and then I'm also adding some perlite. The perlite will improve the drainage of the potting mix. So this is how your potting mix should look like. It should be light and fluffy with a lot of nutrients. You can also add an organic fertilizer at this stage, but I will be using a liquid fertilizer, so I'm going to skip that step for now. Now you can start putting your pot back into the place where the plant will go, and then start adding the soil. You want to make sure that you mix the soil well, especially if you have different batches of potting mix like I do. It's best to mix it in very well, and then test by keeping the plant. The top of the plant should line up along the top of the container. You don't want to plant it too deep. Planting it a little bit up is okay, but planting it too deep is not. Once you place the plant, just start adding the soil back along the sides. Make sure you pack it in really well. Eventually, the level of the soil will go down in the container once you water it. However, by packing it a little bit in, you ensure that it won't go down a lot. So just use your hands. Don't use too much pressure, but just a little bit of pressure to position your plant, pack in the soil around the plant. And then once your pot is filled up, you're ready for the next step, which is watering your plant. Now you can see the soil level is up to the top of the container, because once you water it and keep it for a few days, the level of soil will go down. So once the plant is watered, just set your drip irrigation emitter back, and you can see here after a few days, the level of soil has gone down quite a bit. And this is where you would add mulch. You need about 1 inch or 2 on the top to add mulch. Now the purpose of this mulch is not to provide nutrients or organic matter. The purpose of this mulch is to prevent the water from evaporating quickly and protect the nutrients in the soil. Direct sunlight is not good for the soil, so adding a mulch like this really helps. So I'm using thick mulch because I don't want it to decompose quickly. And then once you add the mulch, make sure you water it. This is a bark-based mulch, so it does get dry. So make sure that you water it from the top so that it's moist again. So there we have it, folks. That was our June episode for California gardening. If you liked this video, give us a thumbs up. And if you're not already a subscriber, hit that subscribe button. If you have any comments or questions, post them in the comments box below. We'll see you again soon. Happy gardening!